Good morning. Thank you, Linda. Welcome to UUCSB. That's a short way of saying the Unitarian Universalist congregation of the Swananoa Valley.
That's small and shorter.
And my name is Larry Perlman. I welcome you here on behalf of the board. At this point, please throw away any cell phones you have or other devices that might make noise during the service. At Unitarian Universalists, we encourage you to follow the truth that you know in your heart, whether the inspiration comes from this place, whether it comes from another religious tradition, whether it comes from a scientific foundation, or wherever. We like to say we don't have to think alike, we love alike. It helps, but you don't have to do it. And we have no creed, but you can see our mission statement on the front of your order of service, and on the back are the principles that we attempt to live by. Now I'd like to read a land acknowledgement. UUCSB acknowledges with respect that the land that we are on today is the ancestral home of the Cherokee and of other indigenous tribes. The Cherokee, through their stewardship, their understanding, and their conservation, survive and continue to thrive in this land. We acknowledge their enduring connection to their homeland, and we give thanks. You'll notice we don't do a lot of announcements anymore. For those of you who are new, you don't have any clue that we used to do a lot of announcements, but that's okay. But we do have a bulletin board just outside the door, hanging right there, and we encourage people to take a look at that if you want to really know what's going on, as well as to read the current that comes in your email. I do have one announcement today, and that is next Sunday, which, by the way, is Potluck Sunday. So I know you'll all be here, because we have great potlucks. It's also, at 12:30, there will be a UU 101 class, particularly useful for if you're brand new and you'd like to know more about UU, but also everybody is welcome. So if you had some questions, it's a good time to come and spend some time with, I assume this was a Okay. So Reverend Carter and Susan Hicks and Scott will be doing UU 101. At this time, we always like to give people who are here for the first time or the second time, or maybe haven't been here in a while, an opportunity to stand up, introduce yourself, tell us where you're from. And we'll start over on this side. Anybody over here?
Hi, y'all. Kathy and Davis from Beaufort, and we're back. We haven't been here in a while, and we now have an address here.
Good to have you back.
Hi, I'm Megan. This is my second time here.
I'm Jeff, first time here.
Glad.
Glad to be back. Anybody else on this side? Okay, how about over here?
I'm Gabrielle. I'm visiting from Virginia.
Hey.
I'm David. I lived here for 22 years, but this is my first time.
Glad to be here.
Hi folks, Russell and Cheryl Ford, we're visiting from Adelaide, South Australia.
Wow. Welcome.
This is my sister Judy from Colorado. She's visiting with us.
Oh, good, welcome. Anybody else from this side, or anywhere? Now, by the way, you know you can tell it's summer when Larry doesn't wear a suit on Sunday. I'm in my shorts, so officially it's summer. Well, thank you for your new coverage. You know, it does take courage to come into a new community for the first time, and so we appreciate that. We welcome you. We hope you feel comfortable here moving forward. And also invite you, if you have an interest in learning more about us, you'll find these little cards either in front with the hymnals, or you can get it in the back foyer. Just fill it out, let you know, let us know what you'd like to, if you'd like to be on the mailing list, or whatever you'd like to know about UU, and we'd be glad to get in touch with you. I would also invite you to stick around after service today. It's not a potluck, but we do have a time that I like to call yak and snack. We have cake and cookies and coffee, and it's a wonderful time to mingle, particularly if you're new, and get to know, are these my kind of people or not? That way you know whether you should come back or not. So I invite you to stick around after service for that. And with that, we'll continue our service.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Got a week coming up. It's the summer solstice is Wednesday, and tomorrow is Juneteenth. So we've got a week.
And happy Father's Day.
You too. This reading this morning is a little lengthy, but it's by Unitarian Universalist Peter Friedrich. We light our chalice for Father and for fatherhood, for sleepless nights, awaiting the curfew breakers, for anxious hours as a driving instructor, for hours spent on sidelines, cheering and watching school plays, sometimes just simply resting our eyes, for the pressures of breadwinning and wait till your father gets home, for teaching moments and mentoring moments, for making up answers when we don't even know what the question is, but are expected to, because as a father, you're supposed to know everything. Should I start over?
Sorry.
This is written by Brother Peter Friedrich. We light our chalice for Father and for fatherhood, for sleepless nights awaiting the curfew breakers, for anxious hours as a driving instructor, for hours spent on sidelines cheering and watching school plays, sometimes resting our eyes, for the pressures of breadwinning and wait till your father gets home, for teaching moments and mentoring moments, for making up answers when you just don't know but are expected to, because as a father, you know everything, for scrapes and boo-boo kisses and band-aids, for hugs and kisses and silliness and play, for bedtime stories and early morning time, for all the aftershave and ties received as gifts, for handing over car keys and waves goodbye, for father-daughter wedding dances and cradling grandchildren for the first time, for all the moments and all the meaning and the role of a lifetime. We light our chalice for fathers and for fatherhood. Please rise as you are willing and able, and join in our opening hymn this morning, hymn number 12, O Life that maketh all things new. Our responsive reading this morning is number 715 in the back of the gray hymnal. The words are from Kahil Gibran. It's called Your Children. So let's read it responsibly. Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself.
They come through you, but are not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you.
You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts.
You may house their bodies, but not their souls. For their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams.
You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you.
For life.
For life goes not backwards, nor tarries with yesterday.
You are the bows from which your children, as living arrows, are sent forth.
The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite, and bends you with the might that the arrows may go swift and far.
Let your remaining in archer's hand be for gladness.
You see how you laugh at me as I get older and I don't see? Shame on you. So, it's a rough crowd. Anyway, moving right along. This is the time in the service where we invite you to share a joy, a concern, a song. The mic is on, and Diane will light your fire as she does. But you can light your own fire if you want to when you come up. And the floor is yours. Well, I'll have to do my sermon.
Joy, Father's Day. Actually, my wife and I, and my sister-in-law, who happened to be here today, went to Greenwood Lake, New York, rented the lake house, and our 3 children, our 2 grandkids, which is all we have, 3 kids, 2 grandkids. We just had a family reunion, just happy. We had a good time. And as a bonus, I have 5 brothers who live in North New Jersey. They all showed up on Sunday.
Hello, I'm Heidi, and as you may have been anticipating, and I certainly was, I now am recognized in North Carolina as a certified nurse assistant. That means I can wipe bottoms, dress people, and help serve them. So I'm ready to
I'm Mary Slayanova, and last week I think I told you about how my fig trees died over the winter, but they came back. What I didn't tell you was those fig trees were given to me by my father. When he was working on a government contract in South Korea, he saw the fig trees and he sliced off a branch and he put it in his jacket pocket and he smuggled it out of South Korea. When he came back, he rooted them and he made one for me and one for my brother. And so that's why I was so devastated when my fig trees all died. But then they came back and now they're about this tall. Happy Father's Day.
That is our Easter sermon.
Good morning, I'm still Larry Perlman, and I have a joy and a concern. My brother recently underwent knee replacement surgery, so that's my concern as he's healing. But my joy is that he's healing well, so we hope it won't be long before he's back on the pickleball court. at 80 years old. Hi, Diane, if you would like a candle of joy. My name is David Reed, and I just wanted to give thanks, first of all, for my beautiful daughter, Katie Hicks, and for my new granddaughter, who is turning 10 months old this month. A scenario, being a grandfather, that I couldn't have foreseen just a couple of years ago. But also, I want to give thanks because she has a grandmother who loves her and who is every bit as loving as her blood and flesh, blood-related grandmother would have been, and that is my wife, my beautiful wife, Jane.
I was not going to mention this, but I think I will because I am actually filled with joy. My name is Andy. And as many of you know, I work as an editor, and I just finished a 550-page novel that a writer elsewhere in North Carolina asked me to edit for him. And it's all about a union strike of tugboat workers in New York City in 1946. And it was such a perfect novel for this political climate because the good guys won. And having finished the edit work on that book, I felt such joy and such elation. And I have one other joy to celebrate, and that is my dear friend Pam, for whom I've done landscape design and work for 15 years, turns 80 today. So happy birthday to Pam.
Good morning, I'm Aline. I'm here with incredible gratitude and joy to all of you for all of your thoughts and prayers over the last few months, for your actions that helped Jim survive taking care of me. He needed a lot of help, and I really appreciate it. And I'm also filled with joy to be here with a man to whom I have been married now for 34 years, almost 34 years, who has been the father to so many children, so many more than I ever thought we would have in our life, and they just keep coming. And we're here celebrating Father's Day with Gaddafi this morning.
Mr. Gaddafi, you want to come down and say something, Jim?
Gaddafi, do you want to go talk?
Yeah, come on down.
Let's go.
Come on down, little brother.
I'm the lucky one to be married to Aline, and father to all these kids. But I also want to share a joy of lunch this week with Molly and Russ. Russ, who is recovering. We had a wonderful lunch, and although he's working really hard in his physical therapy, he's got a long road to go. There's nobody more cheerful than him. So can you say, light a candle? Russ? Okay. All right. Thank you.
So for those of you who, for whatever reason, didn't want to come and light a candle, we have all of your data. We have your birthdays, we know where you live. But we are merciful, and so we keep you in our hearts and in our minds. This is a Father's Day prayer from Kirk Lodeman Copeland. I think it's apropos, and we'll, after you center yourselves, and we'll have our time of quiet, as usual. Let us praise those fathers who have striven to balance the demands of work, marriage, and children with an honest awareness of both joy and sacrifice. Let us praise those fathers who, lacking a good model for a father, have worked to become good fathers. Let us praise those fathers who, by their own account, were not always there for their children, but who continue to offer those children now grown their love and support. Let us pray for those fathers who have been wounded by the neglect and hostility of their children. Let us praise those fathers who, despite divorce, have remained in their children's lives. Let us praise those fathers whose children are adopted and whose love and support has offered healing. Let us praise those fathers who, as stepfathers, freely choose the obligation of fatherhood and earned their stepchildren's love and respect. Let us praise those fathers who have lost a child to death and continue to hold the child in their heart. Let us praise those men who have no children, but cherish the next generation as if they were their own. Let us praise those men who have fathered us in their role as mentors and guides. Let us praise those men who are about to become fathers, and may they openly delight in their children. And let us praise those fathers who have died, but live in our memory, and whose love continues to nurture us. And last but not least, because many of us had sick parents who were so wounded because hurt people, that they were abusive. And that some of us have had to say, I need to love you from afar, or I simply cannot love you at all. Keep those folks in your mind as well. If you can find some forgiveness, some empathy, some understanding, because they were sick and they needed help. And so, and if you can't do that, then don't. If you can't find that forgiveness, then don't. Don't make you a bad person. And now, while I have your attention and your minds are one for this brief moment, I leave you with the eloquence of silence. And so it is. The words of the Prophet Muhammad as we take this morning's offering, we cannot want for ourselves what we don't want for other people. In that spirit, we want to collect this morning's offering. joyful, joyful, we adore thee. Please rise as you are willing and able. Before we start, there's a reason I picked that hymn. There's always a reason. And I do most of the things that I do. But first of all, I want to share with you a joke that, and it's not you. So you can blame him if you want. Okay. A highway patrol officer spotted a pickup truck carrying a bunch of penguins in the back. She stopped the driver and told him that this was a dangerous practice. You need to take those animals to the zoo, she said. The driver said that this was a good idea and said, I agree with you, officer. And so the next day, the officer spotted the same truck with the penguins on board. The officer said, I thought I told you to take those penguins to the zoo. The man said, I did. And they had so much fun, I'm taking them to the beach. For those of you who may not come again after that, I try to start some of the services with a bad joke. No one has thrown a shoe at me yet or anything, but just so you know, if you do come again, you'll have to put up with that. I picked this sermon, I mean, the hymn. You know, next week we're having our UU 101 class, and so the language somewhat archaic. There's the old joke, I watched some of you didn't sing, and the old joke about why all Unitarians don't sing in the service because they're reading ahead to see if they agree with the words. I saw that. But we are part of the Protestant Reformation, so we were liberal Christians. We still have liberal Christians in our denomination, some are even here today. So I do, Malcolm X said you can't hate the root without hating the tree. And so those are our roots. We zigged when many folks zagged, but we still were liberal Christians and followers of the teaching of Yeshua. I want to talk a little bit today about UUs and fatherhood. I want to focus on Universalism because I'm more Universalist than Unitarian as far as the depth of my theology. Let me see something here. I wanted to share, as we have back here from the Hungarian church, God is one. For those humanists today, I should have put PG or something, but there's going to be a lot of God talk. but you're already here and you're gonna survive it. But, Edgy Oz Eshton on the back there, God is one. And that's from our Unitarian brothers and sisters. And for Francis David, who we'll talk about next week. Our culture, and as I was writing this, there was another sermon that popped in my head, but I'll see if it comes out. But our culture tries to tell us what the role is of men in our culture. And what is women's work, and what is mothers, and what is not. Women and mothers are supposed to be, by our culture, to be more aware of the needs of others. After all, it's women who give birth, and which seems the most intimate connection that one person can have with another. And there may be some truth to what society tells us. I've been thinking that maybe this is why we have so much trouble with men being vulnerable. A lot of our masculinity is toxic. We have so much trouble with trans brothers and sisters, or gay brothers and sisters, because we have this fixed idea. And we're going to go into it because God is masculine. And so there's a definitive way to be a man. And if you stray from that, then you get what we're getting now in our culture, in these culture wars. And again, but there may be some truth, not to the discriminatory part, about, men and women. But the real point is this, that men are capable and have a deep sensitivity to the needs of others, right? We too are capable of treating other people as ends in themselves rather than a means to our own ends. We are capable of being unselfish towards others. We can also be nurturing and vulnerable and still be men. And so I believe that this unselfish love is tied to two basic trends in Unitarian Universalism. So some of you who've just joined, some of you who are just curious, I want to go into the differences between the two and how we've come together with this theology. Listen to the words of UU Christian minister William Ellery Channing. We believe that God is infinitely good and kind and benevolent in the proper sense of these words. Good disposition, good in acts, not to a few, but to all, as well as every individual should be. To give our views of God in one word, we believe, now this was written in 1800s, in his parental character. So we ascribe to him not only the name, but the dispositions and principles of a father. These are still his words. We believe that he has a father's concern for his creatures, a father's desire for their improvement, a father's equity in proportioning his commands to their powers, joy in progress, readiness to receive. You get it, yada, yada, yada. And he goes on to say, just this is what God is. God is good. And he's a father, and he's up there in heaven, and this is it. Now, in this reading, because it goes on long, and I shouldn't have written it all down, but this is the gist of it. But in this reading, we hear a classic statement of Unitarianism dating back from 1819, that there is one God, right? Unitarian prefix. God is one. No trinities, weird mathematical formulas. One God. He meditates on what it means to talk about God as a father. Channing tells us that if we are going to talk about God as a father, then we must ascribe the best characteristics of a good father. This is what God equals father. And to our brothers and sisters down the street, too. This is what, we're all part of that Protestant Reformation. He's going to be good to his children. He has the same unstinting love, which somehow they forget at times. The same joy and progress of others that a good father takes. And this all sounds hopelessly idealistic. And I'm not taking pot shots at them. It's just, I was raised as a Baptist. God was judgment and love, but if you didn't believe in what God believed, then that love, it was conditional love. That's what I grew up with. You know, if I acted the way you taught me I should act, then that's it. Now, we've come a long way. That's not all for more Orthodox Christians, but it's still there. It's what makes us angry at people who are trans, angry at people who express a different way of living, a different way of being, because it's got to be, it's anal. It's got to be like that. The knee was bowed a certain way. William Ellery Channing gives us, as a religious principle, an ideal of fatherhood that combines joy, forgiveness, justice, love, and equity. Even if many of us no longer view God as a father figure, we can still appreciate the religious ideal of a good father. You're still with me, right? It's going to pan out, I promise you. It's an ideal. It's not, no one can live up to that, but it's something that we can aspire to. We can appreciate this ideal. This is from our Unitarian heritage. But I want to go to Universalism. We turn from this idealistic vision of fatherhood to a more fundamental principle. Fundamental principle. And that is that the principle is that all human beings, Putin, Pol Pot, Hitler, Lindsey Graham, are all worthy of love. All worthy of love. And it's hard to be a universalist. Because when we grieve or acknowledge people who were killed in massacre, when Brother Dylan killed all those black folk at the church in South Carolina, and I lit a candle, some of y'all came up to me and tried to give me what for. But he's a human being. He made a heinous error. His parents were probably, where did we go wrong with it? But he deserved love. You see. So, this is what it means to be universalist. See, and African American slaves, it was hard for them to take on universalism because they're saying, you mean to tell me that Master is going to be in the same heaven that I'm going to? I don't think so. But they didn't know. It's not, I love you when you act the way I think you should act. But that's a very deep spirituality that Universalism is calling for us to do. So, all human beings are worthy of love, the Universalists say, and when the old Universalists spoke of the fatherhood of God, they meant that God's love must extend to everyone. Every human being is worthy of love. And Theodore Parker, who was paternalistic to people of color, but he was evolved as he could be at that time. Of course, he kept a gun in the pulpit for any slave catchers who wanted to attend his congregation, but he spoke of Mother, Father, God. And so the old Universalists knew that God could not be hateful, could not barbecue you for eternity, because you had a different opinion. It wasn't about this thirst for vengeance. They knew that at the core of this God was love. Indeed, they said that their Father God, that God is love. And I take this to mean that from their religious point of view, 200-300 years ago, the essence of fatherhood, earthly fathers, is an all-encompassing and forgiving love. The notion of fatherhood began with the love of one's own children, but it went far beyond that. Some of the old Universalists read their Bibles pretty literally, and they indeed believed that the first humans were actually creations of this God, and therefore, in a real sense, were children of God. Were children of God. They took that Genesis story and they said that it means what it says, and it said what it means. Many Christian groups, more Orthodox conservative Christians, have interpreted the Bible with the understanding that the members of their group, the people who believe like they believe, are the children of God. And if you do not believe what they believe, that love does not extend to you. Anyone outside of this little group. But the old Universalists knew that God's caring love extended to it, to everybody, to all persons. And this kind of fatherly love knows no bounds. Exactly. And this kind of love goes beyond one's immediate children to all of humanity. That's the basic principle of Universalism. It's not a competition, but we talk so much about Unitarians, and sometimes I attend UU churches, not many often, but this one, but they don't even mention Universalists. It'll say on the sign, Unitarian Universalist Congregation of, and when they talk, they just talk about Unitarians. You and I might use different terminology today than those old UUs. Certainly we have grown beyond the need to understand God as exclusively male, as exclusively as a father. Not all of us believe that. Now we can understand the concept of God to include mother and father, or not have any anthropomorphic image at all, which suits me, or no human characteristics at all, which suits me even better. We can also choose to reject the concept of God completely, right? It's all good. Nevertheless, we can still draw inspiration from those old UUs and those God images, because they can help us better understand the root of the principles of what it means to be a father. Terrestrial, extraterrestrial, whatever. Celestial. On this Father's Day, we must remember the basic religious principle that, once again, because it's not sexy and people have lost their lives over it, but it is basic, that love is the most powerful force in the universe. If it wasn't, people wouldn't get so threatened over it. Right? And as a religious people, well, maybe not a religious people, I think this is more philosophy, but whatever it is, our mission should be to spread the doctrine of love. I'll tell you about two such God concepts that happen to be current in UU circles. And I'm giving you this now so I can go over it next Sunday, and then we don't have to get that much into it. We can get out and enjoy our day. And this is, again, for veterans, but for UUism. You signed a book, and you may not have known how deep the rabbit hole goes. Because 200 years ago, we would be burned at this day. 300 years ago, for even being here. People laid down their lives so we could be here. We're not just a bunch of liberals sitting around talking. We have a history. We have a pedigree. There's something called process theology. The process theologians tell us that God is changing and growing and evolving, and that's why it's called process theology. If you read the Bible, or have read the Bible, or maybe are curious about the Bible, you will see that Yahweh gets less belligerent as the story goes on. And then, of course, several thousand years, Jesus comes in, and one could argue that Jesus is talking about a very different God than Yahweh, but that's another subject for another time. But God is in process. It's like your younger self suddenly realizing that your dad can't fix everything in the world. And he's fallible, and he's growing and changing just like you are. That's process theology. Another way that some of you use understand God goes under the general rubric of transcendentalism. Now that's a pretty vague term these days, but it can include Emersonians, people who worship the goddess, ecological activists. Most transcendentalists, most, not all, see divinity in nature. In nature. And it's hard to argue against that. But you know, if God is this circumference, or if God is the circumference and it's everywhere and nowhere at the same time. And some would even say that nature is God. Transcendentalists believe that the universe, the arc of the universe, bends towards justice and goodness. But they would say that God is completely good, but the rest is up to us. And that's like your younger self, realizing that all your dad really offers you is his love. And pretty much everything else is up to you. It's a mature way of growing and evolving. What about those among us who don't believe in God? Well, there are many ways to not believe in God. But I'll just talk about the one most common for Unitarian Universalists. The best known option for people who don't believe in God is humanism. I would define humanism as a deep trust in the human capacity for good. Humanists also acknowledge that human beings do not always act in good ways, which means we need to figure out a way to build a society to help us act in better ways. Humanism requires of us that we work together with other human beings. I would expand that to the animal kingdom. But you get my drift. We need to work with other human beings to address the very real problems that we are now facing, especially now there are other intelligences coming in, and you know, we gotta put our big boy and big girl pants on. Perhaps humanism can best be compared to your younger self, coming to the long, painful, slow realization that your dad is not superhuman, but he's human. Just like you. He's just another human being trying to make sense out of this earth walk, and maybe you two can work together to address the world's problems. What a concept. At some point in your life, and mine, you realize that your dad can't fix everything. That your dad is fallible and limited, and yet he's growing and evolving and changing at the same time. At some point in your life, and my life, you realize that what your dad really offers is his love, if he's not wounded and can't. And even though it must be admitted that not all dads are able to offer that love, we can acknowledge more generally, once again, that love is the most powerful force in the universe. At some point in your life, you realize that your dad is a human, with all that that implies. You have to grow up. You can't blame him. I'm this way because my grandma was like this, or my mom was raped, or my dad. Yeah. Now what? Get some help. My wish for fathers, and for all parents, is that their children grow. My daughter will grow. Mature enough so that we can ask the questions of our children. How can we fix it together? And if I had one other wish for this Father's Day, this is what I would wish for, that to the extent possible, children will grow up and mature to the point where they can look their parents directly in the eye and say, let's work together to fix the things we can fix. We're both only human. And that allows us to value our parents for their goodness So you just don't focus on how effed up they were. And hold on to that. And it allows us to value ourselves for our own goodness. So we honor the human race, and we honor ourselves by fixing what we can as best we can, so that our lives and the world that we imagine can someday, I won't see it, but someday will be the world attained. Let's go home. Hymn number 23. Rise as you are willing and able. Bring many names. Hymn number 23. Okay, can we show them some love? Thank you, Linda. May love hallow every home and every heart. May the light of truth shine bright among us, and may it bless you with wisdom and courage and strength, and most of all, love. Happy Father's Day.